Currently Inked for August 18th, 2016 is brought to you by Tom Barrington Leather Goods and Accessories. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Currently Inked. I apologize. I'm just going to take these off. I'm going to look like I'm a zombie because, my eyebrows are so light that I have no facial features without glasses. But I'm going to go ahead and take those off because there's a reflection. Obviously, I'm in my bedroom today again instead of in my studio. The studio is set up right now to do a bunch of product photography and B-roll for my reviews, so I didn't want to take that all apart. So I figured I would go ahead and record in here today, since the whole point of these Currently Inked videos is that they don't take a ton of time and that I can just kind of knock them out wherever I am. So welcome. Welcome to another episode of Currently Inked. Have a little coffee and dive in. So for those of you who have not watched Currently Inked before, basically it's just a quick question and answer, and I tell you about some of the pens that I've got inked right now and what they are inked with and that sort of thing. So that's what I'm going to dive into today. I'm still working off my DC haul. So I got a lot of great pens in DC. And I wanted to show this. This is part of my haul as well. This is the Franklin Christoph Penvelope. This is the 13 pen Penvelope, leather Penvelope, really nice. I don't have it full right now because a lot of my pens are out for photography, but I do have about 13 pens inked at the moment. So that is what I've been using since I got back from DC. And I think one of the first ones I'm going to show you here is this one. Now, most people take a look at this and think, oh, is that a Nakaya? And the answer to that question is no. No, it is not. So I did a review back in season 2, 3, I don't remember, of a pen by Jonathan Brooks from the Carolina Pen Company. In the last little while, Jonathan has gotten into urushi lacquer. And this is one of his urushi creations. It looks a lot like a Nakaya. It's done with that red on red finish that is just beautiful. He has really done some good work with urushi, and he's making a lot of cool new designs and things like that. So I wanted to try one of his pens. It's got a 14 karat gold Jowo nib on it, and I have it inked this time. It's a red on red pen, so I figured it's got to have some red ink in there. And I have got it inked with this. It's the KWZ Maple Leaf Red. It was a kind of a limited edition. Was it for the Toronto Pen Show or something like that that it was made? But it's a really nice red. I like it quite a bit, and it's not made anymore, so he let me ink it up with that. That was one of the bottles he had at his table, and I'd never seen it, so wanted to give it a try. So that is one of my Currently Inked for today. Let's dive into some questions, because I've got a bunch of questions that I haven't been able to get to. I'm falling a little behind. Oh, and before I get into the questions, I've had a lot of people ask how to submit, or they email their questions directly to me. You can, if you go to penhabit.com, on the left-hand side of the page, there will be a link to a form where you can submit your questions. That's where I draw my questions from. Occasionally, if I get something in email that I think would be really beneficial for other people to take a look at, I will put it in that form, but that's what I use when I'm actually recording these videos. So, Omas Lover in Ohio asks, you have a beautiful handwriting. I don't think you talked about it much during your pen reviews. I only remember you mentioning winning a pen at a handwriting contest. Could you tell us if you practice your handwriting at all, if you have books on penmanship you study, etc.? Thank you. Oh, thank you. I have a lot of elementary school and junior high school teachers, even high school teachers, who would probably clutch their chest in horror, I just covered up my microphone, to hear someone say that I have nice handwriting. So I do practice my handwriting. I don't have any particular books. I've never studied any books or anything like that. Honestly, what makes the biggest difference for me is I write a lot of letters. And I write all of my reviews out by hand, so it's a lot of writing and being conscious about it. The other thing that I did is when I started really caring about how my handwriting looked, I had to retrain myself. So I'm right-handed. Here's my pen. I learned to write like this using my fingers. The I have found the key to good cursive writing, especially, is to use your whole arm. And you hear this a lot, but it was especially true for me. Instead of having, writing like this on the paper, I've learned to kind of let my hand glide across the paper. That has made a big difference. Um, Part of writing a lot of letters is that I also get a lot of letters in return. And so I see how other people form their letters, and I copy the bits and pieces that I like. But I do sit down and practice. Like, here's my I've been doing some practice on flexible writing, trying to learn a better W, because I don't like my W's very much. So I do sit down and practice, but I'm just freehanding it. I suspect that with a lot of practice, I could really get some nice, even calligraphy going on. I feel like I've got it in me. I just haven't been able to take the time and practice to do that. So, um, short answer is no, I don't use any books, but thank you for the nice handwriting. I do tend to have a little bit of a loopy handwriting, especially because I like to use pens with bounce. But I'd say if you want to improve yours, go slow, look at other examples, write a lot, like a lot, a lot. But when you write, don't just scribble it out. Slow it down, make sure you're forming your letters, try to be consistent. Um, and I cannot believe I'm giving handwriting advice to anybody. That's kind of funny. All right. Um, Parsa from Dallas asks, how do you justify purchasing and bringing pens over $1,000 away from home? All 6 of my pens are 150 to 750, quality over quantity, a principle with which I wholeheartedly agree and have not always practiced. But the second I think about a pen that is over $1,000, I waver. That's a lot of money for a single pen. I like to use my pens in college classes too. I keep them close and don't flash them around, but the idea of bringing a $1,000 plus pen scares me. Uh, for starters, I'm very careful about where I take my $1,000 plus pens. Um, in my last office, I felt okay doing it because everybody knew I was the fountain pen guy. Everybody knew my pens. It was a small office, everyone knew each other, and I had a locking drawer at my desk where I could put them. If I were taking classes in college, there is no way in the 7 layers of hell I would bring my classic pens LB5 to class with me or anything like that. Wouldn't happen. That would stay firmly at home in that situation. Um, and this is one of the things I always say to people. When it comes to price of fountain pens, only spend as much as you're going to be willing to lose. Um, if the idea of losing a pen that is $500 makes you sick to your stomach, you probably shouldn't carry that pen with you unless you are, like, really, 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 really sure you're going to keep it on your person at all times. Um, I admittedly don't have the best sense of the value of money. Um, I didn't grow up with a lot of money, but I'm single, I'm childless. I used to have a job that paid really well. And so I was able to spend a little more money than I probably should have on these pens and justify it by saying it's my savings account. It is a physical savings account. Sorry, I'm a little parched. It's been very hot and dry for Seattle here, and I'm not used to all of this lack of moisture in the air. Um, so when it comes to pens of a lot of value, don't try to force yourself to do something or to carry pens that are more expensive than you think you should, or that, if you feel uncomfortable, listen to that feeling. There's no reason. This is supposed to be a fun hobby. You're not supposed to try to force yourself into doing something that will make you uncomfortable or make you unhappy. So that's my take on that. All right, let's take another look at a currently inked. Sorry, I have to look up my nose here. I've got to grab my little. So people ask all the time about what I store my pens, and this is one of them. This is a Dudek Modern Goods pen holder. So I use this to hold my pens on my desk. the penvelope that I picked up in in DC, the Franklin Christoph penvelope. That's for when I carry my pens with me. So another pen that I am using right now is this one. So this is, and it's hard to tell from the video, this is a very dark green pen. This is the Diplomat Evergreen. And I just inked it up last night, used it to write a couple pages of a letter because I wanted the folks at, for the Diplomat Distributor Points of Excellence here in the US, gave me this pen to review and then give away. And even after only using to write 2 pages of a letter, I can tell you I do not want to give this pen away. Curses. I don't know what it is Diplomat is doing to their nibs, or where, I mean, I'm pretty sure they're Bock nibs. They appear to be Bock nibs, at least based on the feed. But my goodness, the nib on this is nice. And this is the first gold nib I've gotten from Diplomat, and drool. It's really, really, really nice. And I don't know, I'm not usually a match the ink to the pen kind of guy, but in this particular case, I wanted to. So I'm using this Diamine Sherwood green, which is the very first green ink I ever bought, and still one of my favorites when I'm looking for a nice, really dark green, just a little bit on the blue end of the spectrum. Completely unrelated to what I was just talking about, I wanted to clear something up. Come here, Bubba, come here. So someone emailed me last week or messaged me on Facebook, I can't remember which, and said something about, oh, I'm sorry to hear about Luke, and, you know, pets leave a really wonderful impression on our lives and something like that. Maybe something I had said made them think that Luke the dog had passed away. Luke the dog has not passed away, thank goodness. Come here, Bubba. Hop up. Hop up. Come on. Up. I know you want it. Come on. Come get your cookie. Up. There we go. There's Luke the dog. All you have to do is offer him food, and he's still around. Luke? And he's going to climb up on the desk if I let him. There we go. Take your cookie. And run away. Or stay here. You know, whatever works. So yes, Luke the dog is still fine. He's around and healthy and leaving a big puddle of drool on my desk. That's what I get for trying to feed him on the desk while I record. Okay, let's take a quick break so I can tell you about this episode's sponsor. Now, if you're big into fountain pens, and I assume you are, then you probably care about where you store your pens. I know I do. You know, you can see that, let's see, where am I pointing? That thing right there. You can see you can see that big box. That is one of my 3 pen cases. In fact, I'm just going to turn this over here. So there is one pen case right there, and then I'm using one of my other pen cases. It kind of sits in the middle between those two to hold up my laptop, and then that's a 3rd pen case, and that's also where I store all my accessories and things like that. But when you're out and about, sometimes you want a nice pen case to carry with you. And a lot of people want a pen case that has as much style as the pens themselves. And so if you're looking for a nice pen case to carry a couple pens with you wherever you're going, you might want to take a look at Tom Barrington Leather Goods and Accessories. You can find them at tombarrington.com. That's TOMBARRINGTON.com. These are all leather goods made from sustainably raised animals that are farmed for their meat. So this is kind of a byproduct of that meat farming. And he has some really unusual leathers I've not seen in other pen cases. So in addition to the crocodile pattern leathers that you can get in, you know, standard black and brown colors, he's got a whole catalog of really, really cool colors, you know, greens and pinks and oranges and yellows and blues, and in a couple of very unusual leathers. One of them is ostrich leather, which I had never seen before. The other one is stingray leather, and stingray leather was very popular back in the 20s and 30s during the Art Deco period. It's kind of fell out of favor, and it's making a little bit of a comeback. So really attractive, and the ostrich leather has these little almost bullseye type things on them. Really interesting texture and pattern. Very tough, very difficult to work with. The Stingray leather has this almost caviar-like texture. The skin of the Stingray actually has these little pearls of calcium. And when you sand down those pearls of calcium, you get that really neat texture on the leather. And it is also a very tough leather. So if you're looking for something as stylish as your pens to carry them around in, check out Tom Barrington Leather Goods and Accessories. They're really cool looking cases. You can get them either pen sleeves or pen boxes in 1 or 2 pen carries. And if you're looking for something a little different, check those out, because those look like they will, match your flashy pens just wonderfully. So big thank you to Tom Barrington Leather Goods and Accessories for supporting the pen habit. Really do appreciate it. Okay, let's go and get another question here. Blake, you're trying to start a war, aren't you? A flame war. Okay, Blake, also from Tacoma, just down the road. I answered a question of Blake's in the last video, I believe. Blake asked, what is your favorite and least favorite ink bottles and why? Well, let's start with least favorite. Sailor. I hate the Sailor ink bottles with the deep and fiery passion of 1,000 Suns. Not to be melodramatic. The Sailor ink bottles are really problematic for me because they are squat. They're round, but they're squat. So there's a wide opening, but if you've got a number 6 or larger nib, you can't, it's very difficult to submerge the entire nib enough to ink it up. They put this little plastic cone in the bottle where you're supposed to be able to turn the bottle upside down and fill from that cone in order to get more of the ink out. And that's great in practice, or in theory, but in practice, that cone is too small. It doesn't allow me to ink up. If I find if I have a number 5 nib or smaller, it works fine. Number 6 nib or larger, not so much. And a lot of Sailor's pens do have fairly small nibs, but you use their King of Pen, which has got that big honking nib on it. You can't ink it in those bottles. So I don't like that at all. As for bottles I like, they're not very attractive. Well, let's start with the attractive ones. My favorite bottles are the Ackerman bottles, which is those lovely, hourglass-shaped bottles where you can turn it upside down, fill up the top reservoir, and ink from that. And that top reservoir it's very narrow and very deep, so I can ink up even my largest pens, no problem with that. It works perfectly. It's one of those, I just did a review of the Konid bulk filler and talked about how simple yet perfect the filling system is on that pen. And this is, I feel that way about the Ackerman ink bottles. It's like, it's a simple solution, but it works so well, you're kind of amazed no one thought of it before that. I really like the Iroshizuku bottles, and I really like the Graf von Faber-Castell bottles. Now, what those all have in common is they're tall and narrow as opposed to being short and squat and wide. So, ease of filling. And then when we get to aesthetics, I really also like the Sailor, the old style Sailor bung box vase-shaped bottles. Those were a little unsteady, a little unstable, but because it's a fairly narrow base. But even still, I really like inking from those. I've got 2 of them. I got, when Bungbox came to the 2015 show in DC, I picked up a couple of bottles. I was less interested about the ink. I mostly just wanted the bottles. I ended up really liking one of the inks and being ho-hum about the other ink. But the bottles are going to stick around for a long time, I suspect. So those are some of my favorites and least favorites. I really dislike how Noodler's inks are filled right to the top. I know people think that's a lot of value. I end up spilling a lot of that ink anyway because, I spill it when I open the bottle. I spill it when I try to submerge my nib, and give me a little bit of room. It's like ordering a drink from Starbucks. You want some room so you can submerge the nib without it overflowing. So I don't particularly care for that, but the bottles themselves are fine. They're not, particularly attractive either, but they're very functional for filling a pen. Trying to think of other ones. I love the look of the old Caran d'Ache Colors of the Earth bottles. But they're beautiful looking. They're very nicely made, real square bottles, but the reservoir is very narrow and very difficult to fill from, so I don't care for those either. Oh, the bottles I hate more than any other bottle currently under manufacture. That distinction goes to J. Urban. Their bottles are just about the most worthless things if you want to fill a fountain pen from. They're great for dip pens, actually really work really well for dip pens. And they've got that little pen rest on the bottle where you could set your dip pen when you're not using it. But if you want to fill a pen with anything with a nib of any size, forget about it, because the opening's about that big around. So you can't even tilt the pen enough. I just hate those bottles. Hate. There were flames on the side of my face. Yeah. Neg. All right. I'm sure I'm going to get comments about that. One more question. So Carl from Tunbridge Wells, England asks, I'm about to order a Pilot Custom Heritage 91 and it will be my first gold nibbed pen. I like a wet medium nib and have it TWSBI Eco, Waterman Expert, Lamy Safari / All-Star, and Kaweco Brass Sport. Everyone says that Japanese nibs run a grade smaller than European nibs, so I'm undecided as to what nib to order. Will a Pilot Broad be an equivalent to a wet European medium? Or do I stick with a medium and hope it isn't too fine when it arrives? I'm only just rediscovering fountain pens after a 25-year gap since I last used them in school. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. Well, thank you for asking the question. Yes, standard rule of thumb is Japanese manufactured nibs will run about a size to a size and a half more narrow in nib gauge than their European counterparts. Pilot is probably the closest of the three major Japanese manufacturers, Pilot, Platinum, and Sailor. Pilot is probably the closest to the Western nib gauges, but they're still narrower. So my personal take would be go with the broad. I really like Japanese broads. Pilot's broads are really good. So I would personally go with the broad. It's going to be very consistent with what you're used to, especially because, with the Kaweco, their nibs tend to run a little on the wide side. So I think, my experience would be a Japanese broad's going to feel very similar to a wet Lamy or Kaweco medium. So that would be my personal choice. Okay, what are we looking at today for currently inked? What else do we have currently inked at the moment? I just cleaned a bunch of pens out last night, so I don't have a ton inked right now, but I'm going to go ahead and pull this one out. I may have done this one before. I don't remember. There are bound to be some duplicates. So this is another Classic Pens offering. This is the Classic Pens LM1. So this is kind of like the baby brother of my much beloved Classic Pens LB5s. It's a smaller pen, but made of that same diffusion bonded acrylic. So you can, I've talked about this before, but this is the acrylic where they cast it in 3mm sheets with pearlescent swirls in it, and then they stack it on top of each other, diffusion bond it together, and then cut it against the grain to make the pens. Has a really nice soft 18 karat nib on it, really, nice clean design on the nib. Excuse me. These are limited edition. This is number 90 of 500, but there are more of these around. If the LB5 is too rich for your blood, you might want to take a look at the LM1. It's a really, really nice pen. They've been around for a while, so they are a little more difficult to track down, but you can still find them here and there. And they're quite a bit less expensive than the LB5s. I think they're about $500-600 less expensive. And I have that inked with my Caran d'Ache Colors of the Earth Grand Canyon. So really nice there. Just I mentioned this in the last video, but don't forget, you can always pick up my currently inked logs on penhabit.com in the web store there, web store. They're doing really well. They're selling nicely. They're in both pocket size and traveler's notebook size. And yeah, so they're doing really well. People seem to be liking them. The first batch of shipments has kind of gone out all week during the last week, and so far I'm enjoying mine a lot. So, yeah. All right. Well, let's do maybe another question or two. We're getting toward the end of our time here. Trying to get caught up on some of these questions. So Rachel from LA, Los Angeles, asks, I am new to learning about pen shows, and I know that the DC show is huge and that there is a show in San Francisco, but do you know of any other pen shows in California or nearby? What are your favorite pen shows to go to? So yes, the second largest show in the world, to the best of my knowledge, is actually in Los Angeles in February. I was at that show this year. It was an interesting show, and I did a big write-up on it. I had a good time, but my favorite show to attend is the DC show. There's just something about that show and the energy. From what I've heard from a lot of people, the DC show tends to have a younger audience, a more energetic audience. When I was at the LA show, it was a big show floor, lots of people there. Really, I found some wonderful pens and inks. But the best part of pen shows, in my mind, is not the pens and what you go to buy, it's the people and the interactions afterwards. And the LA show felt less friendly to me overall. That being said, if you want an introduction to pen shows, LA is a great place to do it because there's a lot there. The San Francisco show I've never had a chance to go. I've only been to 3 pen shows, 2 in DC and 1 in Los Angeles, because I'm fairly new to this hobby myself. And because there are no shows near me, there's like a kind of a half-day show in Portland, which is a 3-hour drive from here. But aside from that, there aren't any big shows near me. So every time I want to go to a show, it's a pretty big travel expense. I have to board the dog and fly and hotels and all of that stuff. And so I don't go to a lot of pen shows. But there aren't a lot of shows out here in the West. Most of the shows seem to be in the east half of the country. There's a show in Chicago. There's one in Orlando or Miami. There's one in Philadelphia in January. There's the Atlanta Pen Show. I think it's in April or May. There's an Ohio Pen Show, which I think is around Columbus, Ohio. Long Island Pen Show, Baltimore Pen Show. There's a bunch. Here in the US, there's a bunch. But yeah, I really enjoy going to the shows. The pens are great, don't get me wrong, but I love going to the shows for the people. That's the best part. And I feel like so far of the shows that I've attended, the 2016 DC show was the best. And I haven't talked a lot about this because I reference this frequently, but I kind of got myself in trouble talking about the LA show in February. But I will say that the DC show this year was incredible. It was incredible. It was an incredible show. People were just, the bar was just packed with people every night. And, a lot of the bloggers were there. Brian and Rachel Goulet were there. It was just a lot of fun. People hanging out in the bar and talking and going out to the restaurants. And it was a very energizing, uplifting time. Because, I'll be real honest, I love fountain pens, but I get really burned out doing these videos. And I've talked about this before, so I hope that doesn't come as a surprise to anybody. But, I probably put in 20 hours or more a week doing these videos, even during my hiatus, because most of my time during my hiatus is prepping for the upcoming season. So, it's not been so bad right now because I'm not working, but when I have a full-time job and I'm trying to narrate an audiobook or two and take care of my house and walk the dog and all that stuff, the time I spend on these videos kind of burns me out after a while. And there's something about going to a show that just really gets me energized, gets me excited, and reminds me of why I do this in the first place. Because it's when you're alone and sitting in a padded room talking to yourself, which is what I jokingly refer to as recording my videos, um, you forget sometimes the bigger world, and sometimes it's easy to say they're just pens, it's not that big a deal, but they're a lot more for a lot of people. And not to get too new agey and that kind of thing, but writing is a way to take what gets stuck in your head and make it available to the world. And that's an important skill. It's an important exercise for people. A lot of people, this is the way they communicate. Writing is the way they communicate. They don't, there are a lot of introverts in the pen community. And so when I get there and I see these people who, I've talked to several of them who's like, I wouldn't do this otherwise. You see people coming out of their shell, having a lot of fun. And then you see the beautiful artwork and the beautiful writing and the lovely letters that are a result of the hobby that we do. All of a sudden, in that environment, it takes on kind of a bigger meaning. It's more than just, okay, I'm going to talk about this new pen. It's 135 millimeters long. It's got a gold nib, that kind of thing. So for me, that is pretty important to have the bigger picture and be involved in the community in that way. So I do hope you get a chance to go to the pen shows. You're in LA, so in February, go to the LA show. It'll be a really good introduction to pen shows. And then, if you can, the San Fran show is just in a week or so from now. It's coming up really quickly. So, and I know the San Fran show is getting a lot of buzz. It's been very energetic, and they're doing a lot of really cool new things that you're not seeing at a lot of pen shows. So if you get a chance to drive up to or fly up to San Fran, I'd highly recommend it, because that show's getting a lot of good buzz. And I know a lot of good retailers are going to be there. All right. Well, I think I have rambled on long enough. Thank you so much for watching, and the ski wampus background, I apologize for. Hopefully, I will have all the B-roll recorded. I've got about 6 or 7 reviews. I've got 9 reviews recorded. I'm in editing mode right now, and these reviews, now that I'm in 4K, they take a long time to process. So I try to edit 2 or 3 of them in a day, and then let them process overnight and encode down, and then upload them the next day to YouTube. So I've got about 2 months worth of reviews done already, and I've got about a month left to go. So I'm knocking out about 3 to 4 a week is the pace I'm trying to hit right now. It's a little tricky because I want to make sure I know the pen before I review it. So I am writing a lot of letters right now. I'll spend a few days writing letters using the pens that I'm reviewing, so I get a sense of how they write long term, and do they dry out and that sort of thing. But the reviews are coming along well. I'm getting into a rhythm now, so I should be able to knock those out, and I'll keep doing the Currently Inks for a little while now. Hopefully in the next couple weeks, I will start to bring some guests back on every now and again for Currently Inked, instead of just me sitting here rambling. But in the meantime, thank you for watching. Don't forget to head over to penhabit.com. Huge thank you to the sponsor for this episode, Tom Barrington Leather Goods and Accessories at tombarrington.com. And we will see you here soon on another episode of Currently Inked. Bye.